Welcome everybody. Top of the Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, I suppose Saturday evening for you guys in Europe. We've got a special broadcast for you today. We are going to get into the Poker HUD and Holdem Manager. I'm going to start with a very basic HUD. We'll start from scratch. We'll start with what comes out of the box and just build it from the ground up. So this is a good lesson for you beginners or you guys that have maybe played anonymous tables or without a HUD, and we'll get everybody up to the same basic level, and then we'll start talking about some of my other favorite stats. Things like one money, one soft flop is one of my absolute favorites. The other showdown stats, aggression, we'll probably get into aggression pretty fast, but just do a crash course today in poker HUDs. One thing you're going to hear me talking a lot about is my new challenge series. For those of you that follow my blog, I have started a weekly poker challenge series, and you can see that if you go to pokerinAbox.com/poker-coaching-challenge. So I've set up one of my night bots to advertise this, so I don't have to say it over and over. But I'll go ahead and put this for now, new challenge series, since I'm talking about it. But basically, it's a group challenge that we can all work on together. All pick a new, in this case, pick a stat. This week's challenge. If you go over to Facebook, I'll show you. Facebook, pokerinAbox.com. Once a week, I'm going to post a challenge here. So this week's challenge ties in with today's lesson on using the HUD, and that is to pick a stat, one stat, and master it. Get to know it, practice using it at the table, and essentially add it to your repertoire so you can build up one of your skills. We'll do this each week. We'll pick it's not always going to be a stat. It could be all over the place for these challenges. But I challenge you to participate and join us in this, and in fact, as an incentive, I'm going to be offering free coaching I'll be drawing from the people that participate. To participate, you simply need to share this post. So as you can see, we've had 4 shares. There's 4 people in the contest, including myself. I can't win coaching for myself. But this is how the challenge is going to work. And then what you can do is you can comment and say, I want this to be a community thing where we're helping each other. That's the idea. Supporting each other, motivating each other to learn these new stats. And I hope to learn from this process as well. So I think it's a cool idea I'm pretty excited about. And if you want to get involved, again, click that link. It's got more details about how I picked the winner, how to get involved, that sort of thing. So there's that. And if you're, for this specific challenge where we're talking about picking a new HUD and mastering a new HUD statistic, feel free to ask me questions today, because you can, I'm going to go through the stats today and you will have a chance to get some ideas. So with that in mind, let's get to it. Now, let's do this. Let's switch over to my challenge database. Antiquity, howdy, welcome to the stream. I was just chatting with Antiquity a bit earlier. I got your funds also, thanks for that. I just saw that just came through. So here we go. Poker in a Box, you'll see me, once I get through this crash course in setting up a HUD and using a HUD, and I'm just I'm taking my time as we get started, because the way this usually works is, people, as soon as I start, the emails go out to everyone that's following me, and people kind of trickle in. So we'll take it a little slow from the start while other people get in here. But the plan for today for you early birds is, and I think I saw Mike Allen, if you're in here. I think I saw you earlier, and I bet this is going to be right up your alley. This will be perfect for you, because I know you have just started. You just installed your database for the first time, I think, in the last couple of weeks. So I saw you before. Hopefully you're still there. But then by the end of this, I'm planning to go for like 3 or 4 hours today, hopefully 4 hours. We will practice it, we'll demonstrate it, and I'll be doing that, the antiquity, I'll be doing it for your benefit as well on blackjack poker, because even though I've been playing on Bovada lately, of course, you can't use a HUD on Bovada. Well, you can use a minimal HUD, but I just think this whole exercise will be more meaningful and relevant if we do it on blackjack. So that'll be coming towards the end, just depending on how quickly we get through this. So here we go. The place to create your HUD is in HUD Settings. And the HUD Settings comes with this default HUD. And one thing you want to do, here's a pro tip, Antiquity, if you haven't done this. These days, Holdem Manager has this upgrade to new pop-ups. And by the way, it's all going to be Holdem Manager. Sorry if you are poker tracker people, but hey, here's a chance to learn Holdem Manager. I like it better. I think it's more intuitive. And so that's what we're doing. But you definitely want to click this upgrade to new pop-ups. Now, I specifically use NoteCaddy, and I use, on top of NoteCaddy, I use the Edge Ultimate, which is not something I'm going to get into today. It's basically, you know, you can go really deep with these statistics and with these numbers. And there's all kinds of work that people have kind of layered in on top of this, NoteCaddy being part of that. But NoteCaddy is really just a programming language. So then you have people that have built up, you know, their own original statistics, which I've incorporated into my pop-ups. But as a minimum, you want to click this button, and it's all you do is click the button and say yes, and there you go. I'll demonstrate that shortly, but it just, I don't know why they don't just do it automatically, because it cleans up all of your statistics. It cleans up your HUD. I am going to, I just had an idea. I'm going to actually pull up like a high stakes table. I'm doing this because you know, we'll get some guys bouncing in here that, you know, from the gaming side of Twitch, and you know, if they see a bunch of numbers, they may not get what's going on. So just as a sort of frame of reference, I'm going to pull up a table, and we'll have that up on the side. Just you know, if for the people that bounce in and kind of wonder what's going on, the table I think is the quickest visual that people tend to get. So if you're wondering why I'm doing this, that's why I'm doing this. And for fun, we'll just, you know, we'll pull up a bigger stakes table. So I'm just going to throw this up to the side. You can make it really small. And there you go. There's some action. It's just a little indicator that, you know, this is where we're going. We'll be getting at that later. So that's done. Now, I'm just going to be periodically checking to see who's in here. So we'll come into the HUD, and we're going to go to HUD Settings again, and upgrade to new pop-ups. I've already done that once. Did I? Maybe I didn't click apply. So yes, okay. Oh, I think it said restart Holdem Manager, so we'll do that. Now again, don't hesitate to ask me questions as we go through this, and in the back of your mind, be thinking about maybe what you, like if you're interested in joining us in the challenge, what statistic you might want to work on over the next week. Sure, you can work on lots of statistics, but you know, it's not a bad learning approach to take one thing at a time, get that down really well, and move on to the next thing. So for me, I'm doing the challenge, and what I chose, there you are, Mr. Allen. Yeah, welcome. This, like I said it before, I don't know if you were there, but I think this will be really beneficial to you. You know, if no one else in here, you know, others may already have the expertise for the very basic stuff. I promise we'll get into some more intermediate, advanced stuff as we go. But this beginning part, I think, will be crucial for you. So glad that you're here. Okay, so we're going to come back into HUD settings. You could even follow along in your storybooks if you have a large enough monitor, I guess. Default HUD. Now this has name, hands. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure. I think I've already reset. I think I can reset to default HUDs. Well, I don't want to lose my current HUD, so what if we do new? Let's do this. Let's drop all these things here. We'll start from absolute scratch. So you will definitely get name in the default HUD. You'll get some other things, but I'll go through these one at a time. Now, you're going to have pre-flop stats and post-flop stats. Awesome. That's good. That's good, Mike. So here we go. You're going to have pre-flop stats and post-flop stats. One thing you might do is click New, give it a name, you know, my main HUD, or since it's not going to be, I'm not going to call it that because it won't be my main HUD. I'll say my HUD class. So this is my class on building the HUD. And we're starting at the very basic. So name, you got to have the player's name. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to remember. And this, even just the name can help you make sure that your HUD's lined up right. Sometimes you get this weird thing where it shifts around. So you want to make sure that the name is over the right player. So your HUD's aligned properly. You know, when you look at the stats, you don't want to be thinking he's a fish and he's not. So name is actually pretty crucial. We'll go with pre-flop. So the granddaddy and grandmommy stats are VPIP, preflop raise. Those are the first two you want to add. Total VPIP. It's under VPIP. These are all categories, and you can press the down arrow. Total preflop raise. So these are your most critical statistics, and something to keep in mind as we go, and it'll be the next thing I add. So we'll get the main three here. VPIP, preflop raise, and if you're looking for stuff, here's another thing you can do. You can click search down here, then it gives you a little search window. Hands, total hands. So, you know, if I was only going to use 3, if I was only going to use 2, it could be total VPIP or 3, name, VPIP, and hands. VPIP is simply the percentage of hands someone plays. If a fish is playing every hand, it's 100%. If he's a rock and he's really tight and conservative, then in a 6-max game, maybe he gets down to 15%. Something to keep in mind is whether you're playing 6-max, full ring, or heads up, you know, what the stats mean changes. Like a 12% VPIP is a rock, a big rock, really tight player in a 6-max game, but that's actually kind of a standard level for full ring. So you do need to place these numbers in the context of whether you're playing 6-max, full ring, or heads up. So VPIP is simply how many hands someone's playing. If it's in the 20s, they tend to be a reg. If it's 30s, they start getting into either loose passive, loose aggressive range. 40s and above, they're entering fish territory, and over 50, 60, now they're a whale. That's the bottom line for VPIP. It's you know, it's the first stat you want to go to for figuring out what kind of player someone's at. It tells you so much, you know. Now, in order to know whether you can trust this stat or any of these stats for that matter, you do need to consider total hands. So if you've only got 10 hands on someone, but they've played all 10 of them, their VPIP is 100%, then you probably know they're a fish. If you only got 10 hands and they've played 2, 3, 4 of them, you don't really know. They might be a fish, they might be a reg, they might be a rock. You don't really know. So one thing you'll learn as we go, and this applies, you know, for I teach this to my more intermediate students as well, and that's just the whole concept of knowing when to rely on your stats. And bottom line, for each stat, you want to have like about 50 samples, right, for that individual stat. We'll get into how to check your individual stat as we go, unless it's what I call outliers, right? And this is basic statistics. The further that number gets from the average number, the more significant it is over a smaller sample of hands. And just going back to the 100%, while you may only have 10 hands on someone, the average VPIPs are usually around 20, 25%. So if someone's all the way up to 100% over 10 hands, that's meaningful. If they're close to the mean, around 2, it's not meaningful. So that's all I'll say about that for now. Preflop raise. This is simply percentage of hands someone has raised preflop. So it's always going to be a subset of VPIP. In other words, if someone's a 20% VPIP, they can't have a 25% preflop raise, because it's for every hand they raise, that's also considered a hand they played. VPIP is what they've played. Preflop is what they've raised. So typical VPIP preflop raise, as you get used to these numbers, you'll hear things like, oh, he's a 25-20, he's a 30-10, he's a 65. What people are doing is they're giving those first two numbers because it tells so much about someone. It can even just tell you roughly how passive or aggressive someone is, especially a fish. If you have someone that's say a 60 and a 5, then they're probably a more passive fish because there's a correlation between them raising preflop and them raising postflop or putting in bets postflop. If someone's a 60 and the preflop raise is 30 or 40, then they're a really active player, and they're probably going to be way more splashy post-flop and closer to a maniac than a passive fish. So much with these two numbers that you can tell. And then you need those hands in there right away so you know that you can qualify. You can qualify these. So we'll keep going. I'm going to build up maybe 6 stats here, and then we'll pull up a table and look at a few profiles and see how the numbers actually look at the table. Another thing you can do is put new line. So we can have VPIP preflop raise on one line. We can have our so these are preflop numbers. One more preflop number we want to add pretty quickly is let's add 2 more. Let's add 3-bet and cold call. So, and then that'll be good for preflop. Now, something you want to consider is if you're just starting out on a hem can be a memory hog. Good point, but could also be your computer is maybe low on memory. I've got I think 8 gigabytes, and I'm running everything. I've got Skype, Holdem Manager, the this recording software, everything's running at once. So, it should work. You should be able to manage all this stuff if you have enough memory in a, somewhat modern computer. But if you're not streaming, Holdem Manager's, it's not that big of a memory hog. It becomes bulky when you have a million hands in your database, but just firing it up with a small database shouldn't really cause much issues. The reason it's probably causing you issues is because maybe you're watching the streaming at the same time. So if it comes down to it, maybe shut down your Holdem Manager and just take notes the old-fashioned way. So we've got VPIP, we've got preflop raise, we've got hands, and actually, I said Bovada is not the best for. Bovada is not the best for demonstrating this, but you can do this on Bovada. There's a HUD called this. You don't even need Holdem Manager called Holdem Indicator, which gives you these default stats, so you can even use that just on a per session basis for Bovada, just so you guys know. Okay, let's add a few more. Let's add a couple more here. Let's get rid of our stats. I mean our search. Let's go in here to 3-bet. And we're going to add 3-bet here. And we'll have that a little bigger in the background. So total 3-bet's the next one I would add. And then after that, we'll just drop these down pretty fast. Let's add cold call. So total cold call raiser. The reason these are important is because preflop raise is when someone raises, right? That you want to have some information about when someone raises. Now, let's say you raise, okay? And then someone reacts to your raise. You want to have information about that, right? You kind of start with the most likely things to happen, the most common things to happen. So we start with, just how many hands someone plays. These are the 2 crucial ones. Next is, and you can move these around. I'm going to put hands down at the end. Just kind of my typical format. Let's even do this. I already know how this is probably going to look. So let's do name and hands up at the top. Then there'll be another line. We'll have our preflop stats. So VPIP, preflop raise, and I think I said that, but VPIP is what we call it, but it stands for voluntarily put money in the pot. Preflop raise, 3-bet. So what I was saying is when we open, the next question is, well, what is someone going to do when we open? Well, they can 3-bet, they can fold, or they can call. So this gives us an idea. If they 3-bet us, do they do it all the time? Like, is this guy full of shit most of the time when he 3-bets? Or does he never bluff? Like this stat can tell us that. Cold call razor. This is if they call. So like antiquity, I saw that you had just like me. We've got nice tight calling ranges. Say yours, I think I saw in middle position versus an under the gun player is 4%. Mine's 6%. Maybe you're closer to 6%, somewhere around there. But if let's say we're under the gun, we open, and someone with a 4 to 6% cold call calls us in middle position. Well, that guy is calling really tight. He's so tight, his range is so strong that we cannot bluff the flop. A range that tight is just going to be hitting top pair or better all the time, right? I mean, ace high boards, maybe he's got jacks through 10s, jacks, and queens, but he's also got lots of, like, he's got ace king and ace queen represent a huge part of his range, and he just doesn't have hands like 6-5, etc. So these are the excellent preflop stats to start out with. Is the 3-bet before seeing any cards. So the 3-bet percentage, like I'll give you an example. A typical 3-bet percentage is 8%. And just like all the stats, what that represents is all the previous hands that that we have information about that player has played. So yeah, your HUD will work before you even dealt cards, right? The HUD's always going to be sitting there showing you all the information in your database. So when I look at this on a player and see 7%, yeah, it doesn't matter if the cards have been dealt or not. The only reason the cards matter is, let's say he 3-bets you and then the hand ends. Well, now that's one more data point that gets added to these. So you might, like if you have, let's say, for example, you have 10 hands on someone and he's never 3-bet you on those 10 hands, then his 3-bet would say 0. And then let's say he does 3-bet you. So now it's whatever 1/11 is, like, is that 9%, something like that? Then all of a sudden his 3-bet would jump up to 9%. So these will move around a little, especially in the early days while you're getting hands on players. But yeah, the HUD's always sitting there with the information whether you have cards or not. Except when you first sit down. Sometimes when you first sit down at the table, you've got to wait till you've played a hand so that it registers in the software and can show you the cards. Good question. Okay, let's add a few post-flop stats. Let's add c-bet. So c-bet stands for continuation bet, and it's one of the next. Actually, I'm going to add aggression first. We'll come back to c-bet. But one thing I kind of want to do in this process is prioritize with you guys, the first few stats to use. You've played your first 100 hands, or 1,000 hands. You want to start throwing some stats up there. You've heard about HUDs and databases and know that it can help you make good decisions at the poker table. But which ones do you use? There's billions of them here. You don't want to use them all. They're not all going to be relevant. In fact, the vast majority of them will not be useful to you. In fact, if you try to use them, might cause you to make mistakes if you're acting on random information that doesn't actually apply to your poker table. You're just introducing variance to your game, which is not good. It's better that you're making decisions without the HUD if the HUD's actually not reliable. So I'm going to be doing this in the priority of the stats you should actually be adding as you get more and more hands. Now, the first post-flop stat you should add as you have a small database is actually aggression. Okay, if you're just running with the default HUD, they give you aggression factor, which can be a bit confusing, but what you want is aggression percentage. Okay, you can get to it this way. Search stats, just start typing the word aggression. Post-flop aggression percentage. So factor is the first stat that they ever came up with back in the early Poker Tracker 1 when it was the only database out there. It was the best idea they had as far as a overall categorical description of someone's post-flop aggression. And that is a ratio. It's like bets and raises divided by calls, I believe. Maybe calls and folds. Or checks and folds, something like this, but it's a ratio of like aggressive actions, which are bets and raises, divided by passive actions. It doesn't capture all of the passive actions. It's either I forget which subset. You know, a passive action could be a check, a fold, or a call. It doesn't actually include all three of those, which is why this stat is flawed. I think it includes folds and maybe it's either calls or checks. But post-flop aggression instead is a percentage, and it is the aggressive actions that were possible, like bets and raises, divided by total actions. Okay, you get the difference. So typical aggression percentages are going to run in the 30s. If someone starts getting higher than that, then they're an aggressive player. Lower than that, they're a passive player. So I highly encourage you to, if you're using the default HUD now, to get rid of, or at least add post-flop aggression. If you're used to aggression factor, put the two of them up there together. If you've never used either, then just get rid of aggression factor. Don't cloud your mind with it. And get this post-flop aggression percentage in here. 3-bet equals pre-flop re-raise. Yes. Yes. That's another good way of saying that. I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement, but that's your statement is correct. I think a 3-bet is a bet on the flop. I see you're answering, Mr. Allen. Is the 3-bet before seeing any cards? Okay, I'm catching up. I'm back to the chat. Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. How we doing in here? Look at this. Folks are wandering in. So just to catch everybody up, we are blasting through a HUD lesson today on setting up your HUD from scratch, and I'm just going to be dropping all kinds of poker tips and tidbits as we go. Now, the next one I'll add is going to be continuation bet. And some of you may be using, I'm sure, fold to 3-bet and fold to c-bet, but I want to throw out a cautionary warning, or all warnings cautionary, is that redundant? I'm going to throw out a warning about fold to c-bet and fold to 3-bet. As I said before, you need to make sure you've got enough hands that these stats are reliable. And we're going to drill into that concept with examples before we add fold to c-bet and before we add fold to 3-bet. You'll get a feel eventually for how many hands you need on opponents for various stats to be reliable. And I'll go ahead and tell you, you know, total 3-bet, you need just like 400 hands on someone. Fold to 3-bet, you need 1,000, 2,000 hands on a player, depending on how much they're opening. So, you know, just because it says 3-bet, just because 3-bet and fold to 3-bet sound like similar stats, please understand that one requires far more of a sample size than the other, which is why, you know, I think you can run with this from the start, and you can even, you know, you can even run, like, I'd be happy in a game that I only have 100 hands on most players with VPIP, pre-flop raise, 3-bet, and aggression. You know, cold call is nice too, but these are, you know, c-bet is another way. My point is c-bet is kind of the next in line after you've added all these other ones. Even if you don't start with c-bet, that's okay. Post-flop aggression can tell you a lot. So we'll add c-bet, and we're going to stop here. I think this is a nice little plate of starting stats.